Hello all friends, I am Movie Men with you, and in today's review is the 2015 Canadian satirical pseudo-documentary film No Men Beyond This Point. The central character in the story is 37-year-old Andrew Myers, the youngest man in the world. He appears on screen first, make a living in the garden. Satisfied, he inspects the peppers and tomatoes he has grown and comments that he does not think he is special. Andrew does the housework at Tara Granger and Iris Balashov's house. He has his own room which he likes to decorate with drawings of the children, and there are quite a few of them in the house, 6 girls under the age of 17. We are now told about Andrew by his employer, Tetra. The woman admits that she has started to value her employee. Others find it hard to find one, so they hire women, which of course is much more expensive. In between, she gets Andrew to change the light bulb in the bedroom. Further shots show a typical morning at Tara and Iris's house. Andrew takes care of the children and babysits the youngest. Tara continues her story and says that she is worried about how Andrew affects the children. Not in the sense that he might corrupt them, but the children might want things they can't and shouldn't do. Her partner Iris is definitely more sympathetic to men. She willingly tells journalists that she is glad to have a man in his prime like Andrew with them. It enriches their lives. Tara cringes but then agrees that Iris is historically right. 75 years from now, their daughters will tell their granddaughters what men were like. Further on in the story, there are expert witnesses and eyewitnesses. Father Hermano Basti tells us that he graduated from the priestly seminary in 1953 and was sent to the Vatican. Work for the Congregation for the Canonization of Saints. Their task was to investigate unusual events in search of a divine miracle. These could be stigmata, apparitions of the Virgin Mary, healings of the incurable, and of course the Immaculate Conception. It has happened that a woman has claimed that her child was conceived without a father, but in 1953 there were 67 such cases. Oxford University historian Ayala Bhatt adds that more than half a century ago, there were 2 billion Christians. They all believed in the exclusivity of the Immaculate Conception of the Virgin Mary, who gave birth to a son by God. So the church was seriously concerned about so many Immaculate Conception cases. Gordon Trescott, a former professor of cell biology and genetics at the University of Toronto, goes on to say that of course not all women conceived immaculately. There were no DNA tests at the time. A blood test could only confirm that a certain man was not the father, and that of course did not mean that there was no father at all. The only logical explanation people could offer was that all these women were lying. That this was the case is illustrated by Helen Duvall's story. The young girl became pregnant in 1953, but she was well aware that she had not been with her husband Richard for a year, and he knew it too. Of course, he didn't believe his wife that she wasn't cheating, and she had to leave home. No one believed Helen, and she began to think she had lost her mind. The historian tells us that the various governments reacted to the report of the Immaculate Conception in the same way, as if nothing had happened, which is not surprising, as at the time only men were in power. It is clear from the interview with the senator, 54, that the authorities attributed the numerous cases of fatherless pregnancies to the delusional, impressionable, and hysterical nature of women. The biologist admits that he understands the position of the authorities. It would be irresponsible to come out and say that more and more women are getting pregnant without male semen. No one likes to be unwanted. Then the focus is on Andrew again, a man hanging up lingerie in the early morning, women's knickers and bras, and telling us that he especially likes to work in the morning. One of the girls in the family speaks well of him, but struggles to remember the words to describe the handsome man. In English, there is a special word, handsome, in addition to beautiful, which is only used for men. Andrew tells us that this is his 3rd family. There are 6 children here, but it's good to be busy all the time. He likes the women he works for. Iris is calm and kind. When she's around, it's easy for him to very canned. Likes to do everything by the book. Next to her, he tries to keep a low profile and not get underfoot, as he is an employee and cannot let his feelings go and tries to remind himself of that every time. In one domestic scene, Andrew takes the girls to the playground to play football. He himself is chatting with 2 older men, Jimmy and Reggie, who are workers like him. The boys have a friendly laugh at their employers until an angry girl, annoyed by the men, rudely taunts them and demands they disperse. The historian tells the story again. The government may have pretended that nothing was happening, but Sister Isabella, a novice in a mountain monastery in northern Spain, appeared. This girl had no chance of breaking her vows. At another time, the church would have counted her as a saint, and perhaps considered the child as the new Messiah. But a girl was born. The Congregation for the Canonization of Saints ordered the written account of Sister Isabella's case to be destroyed. Without collusion, the secretaries and waitresses stopped coming to work, and the housewives surrendered their posts at the kitchen cooker to their bewildered husbands. The plot returns to Andrew's house. Iris is an artist, but apart from the usual paintings, she paints a man. Tara is asked how she feels about her friend's male subject matter and is okay with it. The woman hesitates but replies that she probably doesn't. The artist herself explains that society ignores the problem, but her lack of men really bothers her. Paintings are a way of confronting what's going on, but they don't sell. No one wants paintings of men. Continuing the theme, the biologist reports that by the end of 1957, 3 out of 4 children were born through immaculate conception, and these were exclusively girls. For some reason, parthenogenesis, a form of asexual reproduction where the only source of genetic material to create an embryo is an egg, turned on. The sperm could no longer pass through reinforced membranes and secretions, and if introduced artificially, it became inert and died. The Y chromosome went out of use, leaving only women in the world. Andrew talks about his school years himself. He attracted a lot of attention. He was kind of a class pet, but not in a bad way. Didn't sit in a cage like Mr. Chips, who was a real pet. High school was a challenge. The girls were so used to living without men that they didn't know how to sympathize with the guy. After high school, he realized that he and his classmates had very different paths. A video chronicle shows Eleanor Maria Hamilton swearing in as President of the United States in 1965 in Washington, D.C. A biologist comments that the change was not abrupt, but that the women who came to power definitely had a plan for revenge against the men. The historian continues that men were badly perceived by women in government. They moved to rural camps, which became known as Exodus. Men in street interviews at the time report harassment and neglect by women. There were protests all over the world. Men demanded respect. Women reacted in an unexpectedly aggressive way. At first, it was explained as parthenogenesis, as if nature made women more aggressive to compensate for the absence of men. But it turned out to be about PMS, premenstrual syndrome. By 1975, there were more than 3/4 of women on the planet, which attracted menstrual synchronization. Protest marches and retaliatory violence prompted the authorities to establish a monthly 3-day weekend called periods. But the protests did not stop. This was the test for a new world united government. A videotape from the 1979 Governing Council press conference reports that all men are being heard by the authorities. Plots of land have been allocated for men's sanctuaries all over the world, including all of Australia. Activist Darius Smid said in a 1981 interview that men have been presented with comforts but taken away their place in the world. They are not going to stand for it. But according to the historian, although the men's liberation organization spoke out boldly and loudly, it did nothing in practice. That this is true is confirmed by an interview with Dario Sam 25 years later. He still heads the men's liberation organization and assures that the men will get their way. According to the biologist, it's not that the government doesn't know how to solve the problem of male extinction, they just don't see the problem. It is sacred nature, a stage of evolution. Darius laments that women in power have canceled space programs and the military budget. They have achieved world peace, but further development without conflict is impossible, as they have been the engine of progress. The story then highlights different views on the causes of male degeneration. Tara believes it is the natural course of things, evolution, but Iris doesn't understand why nature needs it. Tara's views are shared by many women. The aggressive phallic energy was killing the planet, so there was nothing left to do but get rid of it. However, some men recall an unusual near-extraterrestrial object appearing near Earth in 1952, in a cloud of cosmic dust. In footage from the men's reserve filmed in 1994, he states that the government doesn't know the exact cause because they don't want to know, so they don't fix it, or they're just burying their heads in the sand. Men are not like that. They see a problem and pounce on it and then solve it. That is exactly what men are going to do. They are going to return to power and end the world without men. During this fiery speech, something is whispered in the speaker's ear, and he informs the audience that he has just received important information. Right now, a clipping is being dropped in the canteen, and revolutionaries are running to lunch in droves. The journalists then take up the subject of intimacy, which has also undergone a change since the disappearance of men. The story includes an interview with a successful writer who has published a book on sex after men. The author sees no reason to be pessimistic. At the same time, the Director of Public Relations for the world government explains that society is in the process of evolution. Physiological sex is no longer necessary, and attraction will soon pass. But in the meantime, girls must be persuaded not to become addicted to erotic pleasure, and it is important to teach young people how to form deep and intimate sexual relationships as a couple. Tira and Iris may well illustrate the new approach. The women have been friends since high school. Iris describes their relationship as a partnership, but without too much intimacy, though it is noticeable that her words upset Tara. The woman clearly wants a deeper relationship, and when she spells it out, Iris nonchalantly declares that there are men for that. Andrew is a good example, and she really likes him. Tara can't take it anymore, asks to interrupt the interview, and runs out in frustration. She later goes on to say that she thought Iris and Andrew were just flirting, but they really are close. Andrew, meanwhile, tries to reassure Iris, who doesn't know what to do or how to be. He kisses the girl gently, but unfortunately in front of the shocked children and Tara. The communications director admits that there are women who like men, but they are like the men they are protecting, an endangered species. The world government thinks it would be better to ban mixed-sex unions and for men to retreat to sanctuaries. Then society can concentrate on the next stage of evolution. The following inclusion is just from a small nature reserve in Oregon. An employee demonstrates the lack of a fence and tells us that the area is patrolled, but there are very few people willing to run away now. This used to happen 10, 20 years ago. The following video is from 1998. A girl was looking out the window and saw a man. She was frightened and called her mother. The woman arrives and throws a stone at the man, shouts, "Shoo!" and then calls the patrol. The police officers arrived and surrounded the man who had climbed the tree and shot him with a tranquilizer gun. The man was then taken back to a nearby nature reserve. Such cases anger activist Darius. The man complains that people willingly rush to clean up animals. They just can't live without autumn and fruit bats. And no one cares about the men. They are removed from everything, from books and films, and to be sure castrated by adding the female hormone estrogen to food. On learning of this, the men go on hunger strike. They call it off after a day and a half, but Darius reckons they haven't failed. Yes, they could have grown and cooked their own food, but then this crime against men would have faded into oblivion. The communications director admits that the hormone was indeed added, but realized that the initiative was no longer necessary because of the age of the men. Going back to Andrew, after the kissing scandal, the man lost his job. By his own admission, he is neither a leader nor an activist. When he was also deprived of his right to work, he moved to the reserve. It is nice and quiet there, with all the conditions for a comfortable life. But Andrew misses Iris. In his absence, life in his former family home has gradually returned to normal. But Iris admits that the relationship with Tara is no longer the same. The woman feels betrayed, and Iris herself has tried to move on, but nothing works. She can't get over Andrew. Later, Andrew will reveal that the reserve felt like a slow-moving ship. The women are in lifeboats, and the men sit and wait for their fate. He decided to escape, and was terribly worried whether Iris would be waiting for him, whom he wrote in his plan, but she was waiting. During his escape, Andrew runs through the woods past a sign saying, "No men beyond this point," which gave the film its title. The couple decided they didn't want to hide all their lives at a press conference. Iris and Andrew openly declared their feelings and desire to have children together and asked the board for help. Their story has inspired many women to start fighting for men. Iris and Andrew give their latest interview together. They talk about how their marriage ceremony went and are happy that it was perfectly legal. The couple are still in the media spotlight, especially now that Iris is expecting a baby boy. They have decided not to find out the sex of the baby ahead of time, but it is indeed Andrew's. His DNA is present. Tara admits that Iris is happy now. If a boy is born, it will be good for the world at large. But personally, she can't imagine having it inside her. That is, a boy. The biologist explains that government scientists were able to change the Y chromosome to look like the X chromosome and cheated the egg. Helen Duvall is as happy for the couple as anyone else. She admits that she didn't at all wish for men to become extinct, and it's wonderful to see them back in society. But that and a good scare is right. In conclusion, a happy Iris reveals that she feels like she's pregnant for the first time. A relaxed Andrew confesses that he prays it's not a girl. There is an awkward pause. The man starts to make excuses, but Iris still sits there with a frozen look on her face. That's all for today. It would be great if you liked and subscribed to the channel and shared your impressions in the comments. See you soon in a new review. Bye.